I am so tired of coming on this podcast every single week and telling you to stop playing T.Y. Hilton. Like, just stop it.
Mikey needs help.
Mikey needs help.
I was like, if you don't have Jeff Wilson in here, and if you don't run it on first down, I'm gonna strangle you through that TV.
You should know better than everyone else. That fool tears you up when you plays you.
Yeah, but he
Don't you want him on your team?
I have him at number 25.
Thank you. Fine. Todd's the reasonable one on this show.
I take issue with everything he said there.
Well,
I really do.
DeAndre Swift. He's going to break them tackles, son.
That's bold. That's bold. That's putting your nuts on the table right there.
Hey, there's the first time for everything.
Waxing poetic over here with Todd Diamond.
Dude's old.
So what? He's not as old as Brady, and you're jerking him off before the show starts.
I have Sutton in my top 10. I have him at number 9. Yes.
You know what? I'm just canceling the league. I can't do this with you guys. All right, MHA owners, we are back here on the MHA podcast. Eric Lansing, Todd Diamond, Mikey Renault. Guys, we know Aaron Rodgers is going to play this season. How exciting is that? You ready to see Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to win MVP?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say he's going to win MVP, but I have to admit, anybody listened to the last podcast, I was 100% wrong. I said I didn't think he was coming back. Todd believed that he was, so all kudos to Dr. Diamond.
Wow, you're getting kudos at the top of the show.
Yeah.
Todd Diamond, great start to the show for you.
I know, this podcast is going to be awesome.
So Aaron Rodgers, we're feeling good? You're excited? I mean,
Yeah,
any concerns that – I mean, is he going to play with a chip on his shoulder? Is he going to do just enough? Or is it just going to be another good season for Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, he's going to play. He was playing with one chip last year. He's going to be playing like 3 or 4 on his back this year. And it's, I mean, the rankings for him, I think I had him number 5 in my rankings. Yeah, he might be playing he might surpass Patrick Mahomes this year.
Oh, Todd's rankings are changing as we speak.
Yeah, I think he wants to prove again. He wants to listen, I'm just gonna ball out again, even more, and then I'm gonna leave.
So he comes back. It sounds like on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be a free agent next year. Bronco fans, can they hold on to hope that he'll be a Bronco next year, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that since it's probably officially his swan song in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
The Last Dance? Is that what that meme or GIF or whatever it was? The Last Dance? I mean, Tim and Devontae Adams, this is it for them? They're going to go out like Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I definitely think there's still hope for the Broncos for next year.
All right. So we'll just kind of get into some news. You guys ready for some news here? We mentioned Aaron Rodgers. How are you guys doing? I'm sorry. I should have asked you that. Are you guys doing all right? I mean
that's so cruel.
That is very rude of me. I'm sorry. You're in my house. We're actually together. We're not online. We're out together watching the NBA draft. Who cares, honestly? NBA just frustrates me to no end. But you guys doing okay? It's Thursday. Weekend's around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It was, kind of just another side. It was an exciting day in baseball, too, so,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's baseball going on. We won't talk too much baseball, but how you feeling about your Yankees?
kind of a surprise with Anthony Rizzo, but I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad. I mean, would I have preferred them to go get a pitcher? Yes, because that's what we need more, but,
Yeah, can Rizzo close games for them?
Oh,
I'm not sure if Chapman can.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't know. He might need it, but after we got shellacked today, 14-0, we may need Rizzo. So, all in all, A+. I mean, the Yankees were they weren't going to fold. So
A+.
Yeah. So
we can't really talk too much about our teams, the Rockies and the Orioles, but as fantasy-wise for baseball, you said at the beginning it'd be me and you at the end. You still feel that way? I'm not sure if I feel that way.
Well, you have to do your part.
I know I'm having a rough time. I just got to get in the playoffs. I feel confident in that, but, man, my team is not doing well. There's a lot of injuries. Let's continue on with some news. We mentioned Aaron Rodgers, and speaking of those Packers, Aaron Rodgers has an old friend back with him in Green Bay, Randall Cobb, one of Mikey's favorites. Traded from the Texans. Cobb last played with the Packers during the 2018 season. We'll start with Todd. Will Cobb come in, put up fantasy owners that us MHA owners should be interested in.
I think so.
You just said he could finish as the top quarterback. I guess he needs people to throw to.
I mean, because it definitely makes Aaron Rodgers happy, and I guess if you just make Aaron Rodgers happy, it's great. Because it was interesting when they said, well, the reason we went and got Randall Cobb is because we valued Aaron Rodgers' input. Very interesting. Very different tune from previous months and weeks and last year that didn't really want to get Aaron Rodgers' input. But now, what does Aaron Rodgers have to say?
So Randall Cobb, third wide receiver, number 3 wide receiver, top 30, top 40 wide receiver.
I think he'll at least be top 30 wide receiver.
Seems high.
That seemes very high.
That seems high, right?
Yeah.
He's up there in age. He's not. I mean, he'll be a decent. He'll probably be a better slot option than some of the other guys. I just don't know if he's going to put up. I mean, if we're somewhere around 500 to 700 yards, maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that we're going to be super reliant on.
Yeah, and that sounds about right. I'm just looking up right now his last 3 years in Green Bay. Not all that impressive, He was right around 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, is that top 30 to you?
I think
I've heard Todd's numbers on this show. That's nowhere close.
Yeah. Maybe the touchdowns might reflect it a little bit because the fact that, Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb, obviously played with each other before, so that familiarity helps a little bit. So
let's continue on with the news here. Another wide receiver who we want to be interested in, but fortunately he didn't have surgery until just a few days ago. I guess he had it in June. Sorry. Michael Thomas had surgery in June, could miss the start of the season. Coach Sean Payton was very upset, or sounded upset. Says it didn't give us a timetable, but he did say we're going to have to spend some time without him. I don't know how. I mean, he definitely wasn't going in the first round. I don't think he was probably going in the second round, just based on his injury, based on what we saw last year. With this news, how far does that push him down? I mean, how concerned do we have to be about this now?
Very concerned. I mean, you basically have a guy that's going to be injured. You have him not getting along with his coach. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be in New Orleans. I mean, there's red flags just popping up all over the place. I would say round 4 at the earliest.
I'd probably go 5 or 6, depending on how long. I mean, they say the beginning of the season they're not going to be without him, but what is that? Is that is he going to be back week what? Week 4, week 5, week 6? What week is it going to be? Because they always say, well, the start of the season. Well, the start of the season that could drag on until like I said, week 5 or 6 or 7. So, I mean, obviously you know what you're getting from Michael Thomas, but
do you? Do you? I don't think you do. I don't think you can. I think based on the quarterback situation, if they change the offense in any way because of the new quarterback situation, Fantasy Pros has him 33rd overall.
Behind Randall Cobb.
According to Todd, yes. But I'll throw some names at you. You can tell me who you'd rather have. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have Michael Thomas or Tyler Boyd?
Michael Thomas.
It's a tough one.
I think in that scenario, I would probably go Michael Thomas.
I think it depends for me on who my other wide receiver or wide receivers are.
Fair.
If he's my first wide receiver, I'm taking Tyler Boyd. Well, no, I think I'm going the other way. I think if I'm in desperate need and I need an upside guy, I'm going Michael Thomas.
Okay.
But I think I don't know. Maybe I'm rethinking that as I'm saying it out loud. I mean, do I go the safer guy in Tyler Boyd, or am I going to go the upside guy if it's my first wide receiver? I hope that's not the case, but yeah. All right, so you guys will both take Michael Thomas over Boyd. What about Jamar Chase, another Cincinnati guy who's kind of around that area?
Well, because I'm really high on Jamar Chase. I'd probably Jamar Chase over Michael Thomas, just because I think of just what he can do.
No way I'm taking a rookie over him.
Okay. All right. Well, so there you go. Keep an eye on Michael Thomas. We'll see if he gets any kind of game action. He may not see any action until an actual game that counts played. And if that's the case, that's going to take him a couple weeks on top of that. So we might see him until 3 or 4 weeks into the season. And then he's obviously, when he's at his best and Jameis Winston can throw it, then, I mean, there's upside there for sure. Second news here, and this could be, how do they phrase it? It's news that's not really news. It's no news. I forget how that term goes. But Dak Prescott is dealing with soreness in his right throwing arm. He had an MRI, and it showed a muscle strain. The team is being very cautious with it. Any concerns, Mikey? He was your number one quarterback.
Not really. I mean, I kind of read a bunch of different stuff on it. It doesn't sound like they're too concerned with it. They said they're not going to have him throw for a few days, but they're still planning on him playing in the preseason. So obviously it's not a concern to them, so it's not a concern to me.
Any concerns, yes or no?
A little bit of concern.
I said yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. So there is concerns.
Well, when you put it like that.
Yes. I have a few concerns about it because here we go again. Because they said, well, they want him to play in preseason. Well, could take one hit and we could be singing a different tune a little bit.
The good thing about it, right, is Hard Knocks is Dallas Cowboys. So we'll be able to see a lot of what's going on. At least you hope they do. Last piece of news. Another big-time fantasy contributor having some soreness, dealing with some issues. Travis Kelce left practice yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. I typed that up. Dealing with hip and back tightness. He has played in 15 or 16 games in 7 straight seasons. Any concerns, yes or no, Mikey?
No. It's early. He's been a pretty healthy guy over the course of his career. I think it's okay.
I agree with Mikey. No concerns.
Preview to the tight end show, first round pick, yes or no?
What? We have to do a tight end show?
Yes, we have to do a tight end show. I was brilliant with my tight end pick. I got to be brilliant again this year. The pressure's on.
Oh, my God.
Is Travis Kelce a first round pick?
Oh. Do you want me to make a prediction, or do you
just say yes or no? And why'd you move your mic? Move your mic back. It's like pointing up at your nose. Like,
he's putting the nose toward
Travis Kelce, first round pick, yes or no?
I'll say yes.
Todd?
Yes.
I agree. All right. So that'll do it for the news, which means it's time for MHA trivia.
If my answers frighten you, Vincent, then you should cease asking scary questions. I'm gonna take it.
Brought to you by no sponsors. Maybe we should get some sponsors.
Hey, I don't want you touching that computer.
No cheating. This will be hard. I don't want to say it's hard to cheat. I guess you could look at stuff. Okay, guys. So I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to give you guys a couple of running backs. I'll give you 2 running back names. And you got to tell me who had more points. That's it.
Okay.
Simple.
Okay.
There's 5 different questions here. And whoever gets the most. Todd. What are you, 2-0? You're 2-1. You won last week, right?
I did.
And I don't think I ever mentioned that. Like, I mentioned that, yeah, you won, but I didn't give you credit. I'm sorry about that. I'm not on my game. Good job. You got 1 win. Todd's got 2. You have a chance to tie
It's
Todd.
okay. I don't get to earn that because I'm still losing to Todd, so.
Okay, well, here's your chance to tie. Can we celebrate after you tie him? Or do I have to wait till you take the lead?
No, we wait till I take the lead.
So here we go. 2 running backs. You tell me who got more points. I'll go with, since Mikey won last week, I'll give Todd a chance to go first. Okay. And then we could talk about these running backs as we go. I'm not just going to go to the next one. We could talk about these guys.
Okay.
So, between Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, Todd, who had more points in 2020?
Nick Chubb.
Do you think he's correct?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Kareem Hunt had 1 more point than Nick Chubb.
Oh, that's just...
Kareem Hunt, in 16 games, had 841 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, had 38 receptions, 304 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Nick Chubb missed 4 games last year, so only played in 12 games, had 1,067 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, but only 16 catches for 150 yards. So how are we thinking about these 2 guys? Well, let's talk about, obviously, Nick Chubb is the guy that's going first. So, Mikey, what do you think about Nick Chubb coming off the injury? Obviously, 12 touchdowns is a huge number to try to grab again this year. He's not going to catch passes, and I know you're a big proponent of guys that catch passes while running the ball. Are you high on Chubb? Do you like Chubb? Or he's a guy that you would pass on for someone else that has more receiving capabilities.
No, I mean, I like him. I think I have him 8th in my rankings. I just think he's going to get the majority of the touches. I think when he came back from the injury last year, the workload was so much more Nick Chubb heavy. And so, yeah, he's not going to get the catches, but he's going to get the goal line work, and he's going to get the majority of the carries. I mean, Cleveland's a team that's going to want to run him 20-plus times. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get that workload. So, yeah, I'm pretty high on Chubb. I think he's a late first-round guy, early second.
Let me ask you this, Mikey. Would you prefer Nick Chubb, let's say pick 6 or 7, compared to the value of Kareem Hunt? I actually have him higher than the rest of you guys, but are you talking about somewhere between 25 and 30? So I don't know if that makes sense, but in terms of the value, like, would you prefer to have Kareem Hunt at that number, 6 or 7, or would you prefer to have Kareem Hunt at, say, like 30, if that makes any sense?
I still got to go Chubb in that scenario, because I think what you're going to see if Chubb is healthy for the entire season, I think Kareem Hunt's more of like a 6 to 8 point guy. Like, as far as a consistency week to week, he's going to, if he scores a touchdown, then, you know, maybe he's in the teens, but I just don't think that he's I don't even think Kareem Hunt is like a starting flex guy every week if Chubb is healthy every week.
I agree. I honestly think, and I'm drafting 8, so Chubb is a huge possibility, and I like Chubb. The touchdowns are a bit high. However, they have the best, probably arguably the best offensive line in football. I think that coaching staff wants to run the ball. I think both Kareem Hunt and Chubb are going to get a lot of points, or they're going to have a lot of opportunities. All right, guys, so we'll start with Mikey this time. Who had more points between Miles Sanders and J.K. Dobbins?
Wow, that's a tough one. And I had one of those guys.
You did.
It was a draft day trade, I believe.
It was.
It was, because I drafted Miles Sanders, but
I'm still going to give a slight edge to Miles Sanders.
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. J.K. Dobbins, 155 to 150, so it's still 0-0 between you two. Let's kind of get into these guys a little bit. I'll read the stats. Okay, there they are. All right, so Mikey, I'm sorry, you were incorrect. J.K. Dobbins, 153 to 150. Dobbins, 15 games played, 805 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. Didn't catch a lot of balls, 18 receptions for 120 total yards. Miles Sanders missed some games. He missed 4 games last year. 867 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, 28 receptions, and 197 yards. Todd, who would you want? Give me some information about whoever you want to talk about. Dobbins or Miles Sanders? Go for it.
I would probably say Miles Sanders, just in the sense of the quarterback situation this year. I mean, obviously Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy, but this is going to be his first full season, and I think they're going to want to try to run the ball a little bit more.
So you're saying you'd rather have Miles Sanders over Dobbins? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I mean, obviously, they got him projecting 8 touchdowns for 1,100 yards. 40. Now, the receptions is what kind of, obviously, is the bread and butter of our league, is receptions. 47 receptions for 375 yards and 1 touchdown. The 375 is, you're like, what's so great about that? But what I'm more excited about is the 47 receptions, because usually when you're getting into that range, you're talking about usually midway through for like a wide receiver. But if you're gonna tell me you can get 47 receptions and rush for, and most important thing, he's got to stay healthy. That's the injury prone too. But I think what J.K. Dobbins is, because why I wouldn't pick J.K. Dobbins is just because I think Lamar Jackson's their running back. Let's be realistic. Lamar Jackson's their running back. I don't care what, I can put all the stats you want till the kingdom come, but Lamar Jackson's gonna run the ball. But I think they want him to throw the ball more anyway. So I think with Sanders, knowing you're getting a first year quarterback, full-time starter, I think they're going to lean on the running game a little bit. So that's why I would pick Sanders. I know that probably didn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the end of the day, Sanders.
Mikey, who do you prefer out of the two?
I prefer Dobbins. And it has nothing to do with, the fact that Sanders was terrible for me last year. So I want to bring that up. But it's more so, I feel like the Baltimore offense is built on running the football. And I think Lamar's running helps Dobbins in a way. Sanders, I worry about because Philadelphia is going to be a team that's going to be down so much that they're going to have to throw a bunch. And now that they've got such a running quarterback in Hurts, I think that's going to take away some red zone opportunities from them if they get down there. Baltimore is a team that's more likely to be ahead in games, that they're going to be handing off the ball to somebody like Dobbins, where it's going to be the complete reversal with Sanders. So I just think that Dobbins has a better opportunity.
Well, and two, because the reason I said Sanders, too, is because Baltimore has more weapons than the Eagles do, per se. Obviously they drafted Devontae Smith, but still a rookie.
Yeah, I just worry about Philadelphia going 3 and out a bunch, and then what's going to happen.
But I think too they'll try to utilize Sanders more in that, maybe in the passing game too a little bit. Maybe get him, maybe put him in the slot sometimes, or just to get him more involved, just to help Jalen Hurts out a little bit. But I do agree with you, yes, because obviously when you do have a quarterback this is going to be his first full season as a starter, yes, they might have to be throwing the ball more, which again, they don't have a lot of weapons, so I think Sanders might be either that second or third option or however they want to do it.
That's like the ultimate debate, right? It's a matter of touches and winning. Because if you figure that Philadelphia is not going to be good and he's the only guy they have, at least right out of the gate, then he's going to get all the touches. But that limits the touchdown capability. Because maybe he gets a rush on the first down, gets a catch on the second down, third down, they have, then nothing happens, they punt, and he's just not getting opportunity. As a team that, like Baltimore, is going to be able to put up some points. You talk about Lamar Jackson being a running back. J.K. Dobbins ran for 9 touchdowns, despite the fact that Lamar Jackson is their running back. So, and you talk about Baltimore having a top 5 offensive line. We've seen Mark Ingram do well with Lamar Jackson. So I think he's gonna. I'm more higher than I am on Miles Sanders. We're all enthralled with what we saw 2 years ago, but that was a different coach, that was a different system, that was a different quarterback. The offensive line was already falling apart at that point, and it's not going to be a good unit this year. So it just seems like Dobbins is just set up to have a great year. And he was slow to get going, but he was a rookie, right? Last year he was a rookie, right? So he figured it out. They learned how to utilize him in the system. Gus Edwards is there. I don't know if that's a threat. They drafted Kenneth Gainwell. I'm not sure which round, but they drafted him, and these Fantasy Pros has him a top 55 guys. You're worried about Backa or someone coming in to steal carries. Kenneth Gainwell is that organization's running back, or their draft pick, where Miles Sanders wasn't. I'm not saying he's not good enough to be successful. I still think he can get back to that point. But Dobbins just seems like everything's pointing up for him. Let's keep going with MHA trivia at 0-0, guys. Let's try this again. Todd, who had more points in 2020? Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones Jr.?
Ooh. I'll say Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's incorrect. In fact, it wasn't even close.
Really? It was Ronald Jones?
Ronald Jones Jr. finished 16th in our league with 173 points. Fournette, 38th with 109 points. How are you feeling? Who would you rather have going into this season, however?
I'd go with Ronald Jones.
Tell me why.
Obviously, he's more versatile because he can catch out of the backfield. Leonard Fournette's more of just that power runner. And obviously, Tom Brady likes to, check down a lot too as well. So, Ronald Jones is kind of Tom Brady's, James White. So that's why I would pick Ronald Jones over Leonard Fournette. Ronald Jones I have ranked. I can see right here. Well, Fournette I have 33, and Ronald Jones I have 29. So not a huge gap between the two, but Ronald Jones.
Mikey, who had more receptions last year?
Probably Ronald Jones, just because I feel like Jones maybe was on the field more, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Fournette.
Fournette had 36 receptions in 12 games. And then going over to Ronald Jones, he had less than that. As I'm waiting for this to move over here. We need some fun editing later. Ronald Jones had 28 catches in 14 games.
Yeah, neither one of them is the James White, because that's why they brought in Gio Bernard.
Gio Bernard. That should be fun dealing with that.
Well, Carolina.
Who would you draft first, Miguel?
I would take Jones, but I don't really want to take any of them, if that helps.
Sure. So if you just talk about where you have these guys ranked, you'll have to.
Yeah, I got Jones 30, Fournette 36. Yeah, not really high on either one of them.
Winning team, though. I mean, Ronald Jones had 7 touchdowns. I think the same for Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it's a winning.
So there's touchdowns to be had by that group. 6 touchdowns for Fournette.
There is, but like I said, good luck trying to figure out when, and that's kind of the problem. Like, if you take either one of those guys, it's like I don't think you can trust to play either one of them every single week. I think you just kind of have to look for the matchups.
Matchups. There you go. Be careful. Let Kevin draft them all. All right, back to Mikey. We're down to the last 2 here. Still 0-0. And it's been a coin flip, and you guys have been getting them wrong. That's okay. That's what we're doing, this little fun exercise. Because sometimes you just don't realize how well or not how these guys aren't doing. All right, so Mikey, between Zach Moss or Devin Singletary, who had more points?
I'll say Singletary.
That is correct. Well done. 31 points for Singletary. Or excuse me, he was 31st with 122 points. Zach Moss, 49th with 89 points. So definitely a step down for Moss. Are you excited about any of these guys? These are definitely going later in drafts.
No, I was about to say, can I say neither one?
Yes, I will let you say neither one.
Yeah, I think Singletary I had 39th. Zach Moss I had somewhere in the 40s. So, yeah, that Buffalo run game, I'm just not a fan of it at all.
All right, Todd, you're down 1-0.
Okay.
If you get this wrong, Mikey wins. If you get this right, then I'm going to have to figure out a way to tiebreaker. Okay, so between these 2 running backs, Myles Gaskin or Malcolm Brown?
Oh, my gosh.
Mikey is saying, bring it on, Todd. He wants him to tie it so he can see me struggle.
Myles Gaskin.
Correct. Well done. Now, the reason why I brought these 2 guys up, Myles Gaskin finished 27th amongst running back with 141 points. Malcolm Brown just 41st with 97 points. However, they're both on the same team now, and Malcolm Brown does not go away. And he can run in from the goal line and make things happen. So I think for a lot of us, I think we might be high on Myles Gaskin, but I think Malcolm Brown comes in and really kind of puts a thorn in the side of anybody who ends up drafting him.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams situation. Jamal Williams comes in and takes away goal line carries from Aaron Jones.
All right, let's talk about these 2 running backs. Okay, who had more points, Mikey? If you get this, you win. That's not fair to Todd. I have to give you a chance to tie it up. No, we'll go this way. All right, between Raheem Mostert and Damian Harris, who had more points?
Ooh.
Now, Mikey gets to choose first, and then you just pick. You get whoever he doesn't pick.
I'm going to say Damian Harris.
So you pick Mostert.
Yeah.
And Mikey would win. So Raheem Mostert, 86 points in 8 games. 521 yards rushing, 16 receptions, 156 yards, and 1 touchdown. Damian Harris had 691 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions, and 52 yards. I always felt like Aaron had more points from Harris than that, but maybe that was just a short stint. But out of these 2 guys, Mikey, who do you have higher in your list, and is any of these guys fantasy relevant?
Yeah, I think I had Mostert higher.
Yeah, you have him 27th, and Harris, I'll get to you. I'll let you know. So go ahead.
Yeah, I believe I had Mostert higher. I just like the situation better for Mostert, so I'm just hoping that he stays healthy, and that way he would finish above Damian Harris. Like, Damian Harris is not going to be on the field for 3 downs for New England. He's not going to get a big bulk of the touchdowns because they have Cam Newton. They still have James White there. They still have Sony Michel there. And the 49ers got other running backs too, but I think if Mostert's healthy, I think there's a better chance that Mostert could finish, as a top 25 guy as opposed to Harris.
So let's get into the guys we should talk about, and that is the number 1 running back drafted in leagues, at least in our league. Who should be the number 1 guy? Mikey? Is it Christian McCaffrey, or is it another running back that people should keep an eye on? And I know you surprised us with your Dak Prescott number 1. Are you going to go with someone else other than McCaffrey this year?
No, I stuck with McCaffrey. And you could look at the fact that he got injured last year, but I can't, hold that against him. That just happens sometimes. There's nobody that has the just rushing / receiving ability that he does in the league. You're talking about a guy that can get close to 100 catches every single season, and that is the 3-down guy that's going to get all the touches at the goal line. So, yeah, he is so much of a chunk of that Carolina offense. You're talking about a guy that easily could hit 2,000 scrimmage yards if he stays healthy. I got to go McCaffrey number 1.
He was pretty incredible in those 3 games. Ended up with 6 total touchdowns, 225 yards rushing, 17 receptions, 149 more yards, averaged 25 touches per game. I remember one of those games because I had McCaffrey had to deal with this nonsense all year. There was a game where he was injured before, but he still went out there and rushed for a touchdown. So he's definitely good when he's out there. Todd, do you feel the same, or do you have someone else as your number 1 running back?
No, this is like LaDainian Tomlinson. No, there's nobody close. There's nobody close. What he can do in reality and fantasy, so it doesn't matter.
Mike Davis is gone, so there's no real threat. Mike Davis was a threat. And he was good when he was there, and he's now in Atlanta. And McCaffrey's only 25 years old.
Yeah.
And Mikey mentioned the receptions. Here's his numbers in his career with the receptions. 80 in his rookie year. 107 in 2018. 116 in 2019. And then we mentioned the 17 receptions. So I think you're right. There's a lot of great guys at the top here, but what he could do, his ceiling is so high. And he's never really been injury prone. He's played 16 games 3 years in a row until last year. So I think, there's a lot to worry about. New coach, new system, offensive line's not the best.
They can't screw.
But he's so good,
up.
And they just give him all the touches, and there's no one there to really take anything away from him. We'll keep going here. We have a lot of running backs to get to, and if we don't get to all these running backs, we'll just we'll do a separate show and finish those, and maybe start the wide receivers. We'll see how it all goes. So we mentioned who we thought our number 1 guy was, CMC, across the board here. Who's number 2? Todd, who's your number 2 running back, and tell me why you like him.
I have Kamara. The fact of the matter is, even with Drew Brees there, he was there, the running back, wide receiver, still had a lot of receptions, and even this year now, with the quarterback situation kind of in the dark a little bit, you don't know who it's going to be. And with Michael Thomas being sidelined for got to throw the ball to somewhere, somebody, and you got to hand the ball out to. And Kamara, he's that all-purpose back you need. So I think that's why.
What I was talking about earlier, right? In terms of the difference between a winning team and a team that needs to give you targets to try to win. Is that why you have Kamara 6th?
I'm just worried about the Saints situation as a whole. Kamara busted out. He probably had his best season of his career last year.
He finished first in our league in points, 326.
Yeah, and I see regression coming with this. I think that Saints offense as a whole, they lost so much. They even lost some people off their coaching staff. Kamara's not I don't see him as a 3-down back either, as explosive as he is. I just think there's some regression coming his way.
So who's your number 2?
I had Dalvin Cook. That's a guy and a team that knows where its bread is buttered. They know Dalvin Cook is their man. They handed the ball to him. They have a good backup in Madison, but, it's Dalvin Cook's – it's not even a threat. They hand it off to him in the red zone. He gets the catches. This is a dude, the last 2 years, it's just been incredible, and I just see it continuing. Especially, I ever since they went to that Shanahan style that Kubiak brought in, Dalvin Cook's took off, and I don't see it stopping.
Usually when we're talking about these guys, we're nitpicking at certain points. Kamara stays healthy for the most part. Dalvin Cook, not so much. That doesn't sway you towards Kamara?
No,
you've had Cook, and he's gotten hurt, and it hurt your chances. that was just a couple of years ago. That's 1 year, whatever. But if we're nitpicking, that may sway people like, oh, well, Kamara is going to catch all these passes, not miss games, and provide me more fantasy points as we saw last year.
Yeah, I like Cook's consistency on a week-to-week basis. Like, I felt like, and especially when I had him, but even like when I didn't, like I felt like when Cook's in there, it's like, all right, I think I can get 20 from him every single week. Whereas Kamara, he has these explosion games, which are nice, but then he has some games where it's kind of like, yeah, you know. So I mean, I'm just rolling with the consistency.
But also too, if depending on whoever it is, if it's Winston or Tate, whatever the case may be, that's gonna be, they're probably gonna have to throw the ball a lot, and not having Michael Thomas, Kamara's gonna have to. They're gonna have to flag him out as a wide receiver. They're gonna have to get him the ball somehow. That's the only way. That's the only way until Michael, because the rest of their wide receiver core is just straight poo poo. So
there's no doubt about that, but. Like, I feel like losing Drew Brees is going to hurt him more than people think. Like, they were so good on third down when Drew Brees, could hit him on those little fly routes out of the backfield. Like that, like, especially once Drew Brees' arm didn't have it anymore, like it wasn't last year, like he got more volume. And now you don't know who it's going to be. It could be Taysom Hill. And then what happens to Kamara's value? So at this point, I gotta roll with what I know is gonna be there.
I mean, if we're just doing a little bit, I think it's gonna be Winston. I just don't know if they're really for Hill.
Well, you got to remember it's about winning for them. We're fantasy, right? For them, it's about winning, and that could be a combination of both. Is it a hot hand? Is it the way the matchup sets up? I don't know. But here's an interesting stat as we're talking about it. Fantasy that got this from Fantasy Pros. Said that Brees targeted running backs at least 28% of the time in his last 4 years. In Jameis Winston's last 4 years, where he started, he targeted running backs just 18% of the time. Take that for what it's worth. It's a stat. We've seen Jameis Winston loves to throw it downfield, loves to get it down there. I mean, I don't know who's going to get it to at this current moment, but they're an NFL team. They'll figure out someone to go to. But I kind of agree with Mikey where nothing much changes. I mean, you talk about, well, they don't have any weapons, but Vikings have all these weapons, and they're still piling up the points. Yes, Kamara had more points, but that was because he had Drew Brees, and the volume was higher. And then 2 years ago, Kamara had 6 touchdowns. Last year, had 21.
Well, and he had
that number's coming down. I guarantee you right
like
now.
6 or 7 in that one game on Christmas. I mean,
oh, right, yeah. So that number's going to come down for sure. Give me some quick thoughts on Derrick Henry. 2,000 yards last year. He ended up finishing second in our league behind Kamara in points. 17 rushing touchdowns, over 2,000 yards rushing. Just 19 catches, as usual. He's not going to be a guy that catches them. But how are you feeling about Derrick Henry going in? Can he do it again? And now 17 games, he can easily get 2,000 yards.
Yeah, he can do it again. With him, I'm not as worried about the receptions because the type of volume he gets when they hand the ball off to him, it kind of makes up for it. Like you don't really see a ton of running backs that get the type of carries that he gets, every week. He's getting 20 plus every game. You just know it's going to happen. And with them getting Julio now, I think it's going to take a little bit of pressure off. He's not going to see as many people in the box when he's running now. So, I think his yards per carry should go up. They're giving it to him in the red zone. Yeah, I like Henry again. I saw a crazy stat I was telling Eric about last week. It's just where I saw he had like 46 touchdowns in his last 45 games. If you could take a guy and say, I'm automatic touchdown every week, yeah, you do it.
Yeah, in terms of rankings, we're all really close. Todd and I have him 4th, Mikey 3rd. I just love hearing Mikey say I love Derrick Henry because there was a time
that
not
he did
too long ago.
I've warmed to him.
Todd, they do lose the Titans, their offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach in Atlanta. They do promote within they did promote within their tight ends coach. How are you feeling, Derrick Henry?
I think with Derrick Henry, you don't think about it too much. You just hand him off the ball and let him run. You don't really It's kind of like with Christian McCaffrey. You don't overthink it.
But any concerns that he's – I mean, he is – I forget the stat, but he's got like more than 120 attempts, more than the second best guy. I mean, you mentioned the volume. At some point, you break down. The average span of career for running back is 4 years, and he's been putting up these big numbers and big toting carries. Does that creep into your mind at all, or do you just feel so confident in what he's going to bring to the table you're not worried about him getting hurt?
I think if anything,
Mikey says Ford tough.
I mean, obviously bringing in Julio definitely helps a little bit with, like, maybe helping with his workload. Maybe that they don't have to hand it to him off, almost every possession. But no, not really. I mean, until shows otherwise. If it's saying goes, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And Derrick Henry just keeps on trucking along. So
he's only missed 2 games in his 5-year career.
Yeah, so that's
215 attempts in 2018, 303 attempts in 2019, and 378 attempts in 2020. A guy that we've been high on that has carried the rock a lot in the last few years is Ezekiel Elliott. A guy that, and Mikey had him, so I'll let Mikey start here. What did you see from Zeke? And can it be something that can be remedied this year? Obviously, there's a lot of things going on, right? Dak Prescott went down. The offensive line was in shambles. And his numbers weren't great. And I think a lot of people are concerned. And just based on the different websites and magazines I read, they're not high on him. Should they be high on him? Are they totally dismissing what this guy was before last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're making a mistake because you're just looking based off of what he did last year, and you're not taking into account everything that's changed. It's so simple with him. Like, there's with Dak and there's without Dak, and he's terrible when there's no Dak. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's because they have guys like Ben DiNucci backing up Dak. That a whole offense goes into the, excuse my language, shitter when he is not there.
Shitter.
So that's just the way it is. And you're right, his offensive line was banged up. Their tight end was out for the season. Not a lot went right in Dallas last year. But I truly believe if everybody is healthy that he'll be back to the same Zeke that can get you 15 to 20 every week. And so I've got him as a top five guy in my rankings.
Do you feel the same? Everything's going to be back to normal this year, or should fantasy owners temper expectations, or maybe not even say he's going to be bad, but take guys like Aaron Jones or Nick Chubb over him, or Saquon Barkley ahead of him? Because, I mean, while Saquon's been more injury-prone, he's younger. If you're talking about the span of a lifetime of a running back and their peak and their – I mean, he's only 27. Zeke's only 27.
Yeah,
maybe that's old for running back. I don't know.
It's Derrick Henry's age.
Right, yeah, so there you go. But should owners be concerned, or is people just thinking way too much about it, and Zeke's going to be a guy that's going to put up 1,500 yards and 10 to 12 touchdowns as usual? And his receiving numbers aren't bad either.
No, obviously I don't think they're going to want to really lean on him for that one. They got Cooper and Lamb, so the receiving part they got that one down. But I have Zeke at number 6 in my ranking. So obviously, Mike, you had him in top 5, right? So all right, so just a few off. Yes, they are overthinking it a little bit because we have seen what Zeke can do. But also too, you have. Offensive line has to be. A lot of things have to go right, but you don't want to be that one owner that that maybe wasn't sure. Like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe it's like, should I draft Zeke or draft the top wide receiver or something like that? And Zeke just goes off. So
the thing I'll say, and we've all said it, but the thing I'll add is that he had a bad season last year. Mikey traded him. However, he still finished 11th in our scoring.
Yeah, see that, and that's
so you had a couple touchdowns. He's gonna go up into the top 10, probably top 9. So one bad season. I'm not super concerned. He still played 15 games despite all the craziness. They could have sat him if they wanted to, knowing they weren't. I guess they were kind of close to the playoff race because the NFC East is so bad. But so Austin Eckler, man, 2 years ago he was pretty good, right, guys? 2019. put up some pretty incredible stats. Can we expect him to do it again here in 2021? Had an off season. He had an injury plague season last year. Are we high on him? Are we down on him? People love the receptions. It's a PPR league, and that's what he does best. How are we feeling about Austin Eckler this year, Mikey?
I love him. I think that he can be a top 10 guy. I think, again, people are going to look at the fact that he got hurt last year. But, you got a guy that's in a good offense that they use in the passing game a lot. The one down thing is that they don't tend to use him as much in the red zone. But, he could be an explosive player. You're talking about a guy that, just back to 2019 was a guy that was putting up, 15 to 20 points every week. So I don't see any reason he can't get back to that. I don't think there's a lot in his way. Justin Jackson, what was his backup? They have Robert Kelly there.
Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, Joshua Kelly. I don't know. I like running backs and good offenses that catch passes. For me, he's a top 10 guy.
Todd, quick thoughts on Eckler?
Yeah, I had Eckler ranked number 12th. Obviously, I said the receptions are a big thing. Obviously they got him projected this year 75 receptions for 611 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good, and the fact close to 900 yards rushing for this year projected. So, and the fact he's they're up. They've got a young quarterback likes to throw the ball a lot. That's a win-win to me right there.
Who are you getting your projections from? Or are they your projections?
ESPN projections.
Okay. Some notes. I like Eckler too. I had him 10th. Some notes. With Herbert under center, Eckler saw 63 targets over a 16-game season. That's 126 targets, which is incredible. That's McCaffrey type numbers. One thing or another thing that helps his case is the offensive line. They put a ton of money in the offensive line to be better because they know they're not spending money on Herbert because he's a rookie, so they're going to spend on the offensive line to keep him healthy, to help them try to win now. The thing that does scare me, and Mikey mentioned it, is the red zone. He's not a big touchdown guy. He had 11 touchdowns 2 years ago, but 5, 6, and then 3 last year in limited time. He missed 6 games. But you're right. I don't think he's not the type of guy that's going to knock it in from the 2 or 3 or the 1. If he's going to score touchdowns, it's probably going to be 5 yards or out on a catch. And that scares me. His receptions are great. I still have him a top 10 guy, but that definitely sticks out. Another guy this guy was incredible down the stretch, Jonathan Taylor. Todd wasn't high on him going into the season. He loved him as a college guy, but at the beginning of last year, he was like, I don't know. I'm not super excited about him. He had quite the season for Indianapolis, especially down the stretch. He would end up finishing 6th in our league in points. How are you feeling about Jonathan Taylor with the Colts this year?
Well,
you back on that train now?
A little bit now because they fixed that offensive line. Because the reason I wasn't very high on him, because I was high on him when he was in college, is because Wisconsin, great offensive line. They make any running back just look freaking fantastic. But when they come into the league and they don't go to a team that has a good offensive line, they go down the toilet. But the offensive line for the Colts now is looking like Dallas of old. And obviously Jonathan Taylor's a versatile back too, can catch a lot of passes out of the backfield as well too. So yes, I'm kind of eating my words on not being very high on Jonathan Taylor, but like I said, fix the offensive line. Wisconsin running backs just smell that in the air and go, oh, this is great. An offensive line I can run behind. It's going to be great. So there you go.
Mikey, we all have them ranked pretty much the same. You have them one spot higher than Todd and I at 10. We both have them at 11. So you must be feeling pretty good about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I like what I saw. I think the difference in what we probably thought last year is you didn't know when he was going to get his opportunity. Right. They had Marlon Mack there. He was the starter going in, and it just kind of worked out. He got hurt in the first week, and it was just down to him and Naheem Hines, and Hines being like the third down catching passes guy. And Taylor took off that second half of the season. You know, he had an incredible offensive line. You've got a team that's not really pass-centric because, you know, not only do they not have like the greatest quarterback, I mean, Carson Wentz is good, but not great, but they also don't have a great receiving core either. So they're a run-first team. And they play in a dome, which I like too. That kind of helps things. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's got a high ceiling. I thought 10 was a good place to put him because I think he's going to get that opportunity.
You mentioned they run first. They utilize all of their backs.
Yeah.
Right? So you had Taylor, who had 268 touches. Naeem Hines had 152. Jordan Wilkins had 96. And Marlon Mack is back. That doesn't deter you at all to – I don't know, maybe I should drop him a few because like some of these other guys behind him may have more chance to get more touches.
Not as much. I mean, I feel like Mack's coming off a pretty major ACL injury. So I don't really see him being like a huge factor, especially not right away. I mean, I brought him back. It's on a 1-year deal. I think what they've seen from Taylor now, they know he's the guy. So I think Hines is still going to be kind of a bugaboo as a third down back. So that's going to take away reception chances for Taylor. But it didn't bother him in the second half. He was so good just running the ball. And he was their guy, you know, in the red zone. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that would cause me to drop him.
In the last 6 weeks, they played an incredibly easy schedule.
They did.
Does that factor? I mean, it doesn't factor in for you then. I mean, down the stretch, they played Houston, Las Vegas, Houston, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, like just garbage.
Yeah, let me tell you, when you play in a division with Jacksonville and Houston, you get them twice. So no, that's not going to change.
Yeah, and those defenses are not exactly, strike the fear.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why his numbers were so bloated the last 6 games because the schedule is kind of easy.
And let me tell you, Tennessee is a good team, but their defense is not. So there you go. There's their other divisional opponent.
He only had 3 fantasy points against Tennessee, but it looks like he only had 7 carries in that game. All right. Coming down the end, we're getting close in terms of where we might have to stop. But let's just, Todd, we'll start with you here. Rank these often injured running backs. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting because we are incredibly separated on one of these guys. But before we get to that point, and we'll get to it, Todd, I want you to rank for me, based on your rankings, Chris Carson, Joe Mixon, and Nick Chubb. Now, we talked about Chubb, so we don't have to go too deep into him. But these guys, I don't say they injury-prone tag, but they've dealt with some injuries the last few years. How would you rank those 3 guys?
So Chubb number 1, Joe Mixon number 2, and Carson number 3. And it was pretty easy just because putting Carson number 3 because injury, oh, my God, injury. Like that just I don't want anything to do with Seattle's backfield. At enough weeks last year where I was I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, let's pick it up from there.
Okay.
Because that's where we have the most we're not doing a rankings discrepancy episode, but I think we do need to talk about how different we are, at least where Todd is on Chris Carson. I have him 12th. Mikey has him 12th. Todd has him 25th. 25th. Todd, you have to explain yourself. All right, you mentioned the injuries, but I mean, this dude has averaged 9 touchdowns per year the last 3 years, despite the injuries. On an offense that scores a lot of points.
Yes, but it's more the reason I had him. It's just the injury factor. I don't want to have anything to do. I don't have anything to do with that backfield. I mean, yes, when he's on the field, he's great, but. Sorry, I'd rather go take my chances with the second string running back than I would. You know what? I'd rather choose James Conner. Oh God, I can't believe I just said that. But over Carson. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Todd Diamond. Mikey, go ahead and tell him why he's wrong.
I thought I heard James Conner. Oh, okay. So here's the thing with Carson, I think maybe this is where Todd sees is like if you watch Chris Carson, you never like really see like, oh, he's so spectacular. He's not a guy that just breaks off a bunch of runs. He's never going to be like a top 5 elite type running back. There's not really that upside there. But, man, it's like, I swear, every time you turn around every week and he's playing, it's like somehow he ends up with like 15 points.
Playing for what?
It's
On
like,
the bench?
And I don't know how it happens. He doesn't get the most, carries in the world, but like he's always there. Like he scores touchdowns. Like he's Seattle's main guy. And like Eric said, they do score a lot of points. So whoever's there, the running back's going to get him. And it's more than likely going to be him because they don't really have much
Rashad Penny.
aside from him.
Ugh, gross.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So I feel like there's running backs that I rated Carson ahead of that are probably better running backs when you look at them. But from a fantasy perspective, I got to look at it as a whole, and I just think Carson's going to end up outscoring him.
That's important. So in his career, in his rookie year, he only played 4 games. 2018, he only missed 2. He missed 1 in 2019 and then missed 4 last season. But he averages 4.5 yards per carry, which is still not the best number, but it's consistent.
And he runs tough.
Yeah, I mean, he catches balls, not a lot of them, 37, 20 in the last 3 years, but it's just those touchdowns. Even if he just falls into the end zone, because as Russell Wilson gets older, they're asking him to run less. Now, he's still going to run, but Chris Carson is just – he picks up fantasy points. He's not going to be flashy like Alvin Kamara, but he does what he does, and he's run for 1,100 yards, 1,200 yards, and he finished 17th in points last year despite missing 4 games.
He's just solid.
I
Not
mean,
spectacular.
So Todd
solid.
has him ranked 25th and around guys like Chase Edmonds, Jamal Williams, which is another really high guy, by the way. We probably won't talk about that today. Melvin Gordon. So guys that their ceilings are so much lower. Chris Carson's ceiling is not going to be the top 10 that you mentioned, right? The elite guys, but he could easily get there. So you don't want him, right? So I can respect that. You're standing behind it. I just think you're missing out.
If he was my RB2, I'd love it.
I would love it. I would agree with you on that. Mikey, rank the guys: Carson, Mixon, and Chubb, and then give me some stuff on Joe Mixon.
I think the same. I had Chubb, Mixon, and Carson, but it was just they're much closer to each other than, Todd had. Mixon's a guy again. I think this year, if everything goes right and everybody stays healthy, this Bengals offense is one on the rise.
I'm with you.
With Burrow, they've got the 3 receivers. With Boyd and with Chase now and with Higgins. And I think if Mixon can stay healthy in that mix, he's always been a guy like when you give him carries, he produces. But his issue is his quarterback got hurt, the team stunk. It's kind of the same issue like with Elliott. And then he gets hurt, and then his numbers drop. So, I mean, the talent's there. They just got to stay healthy in Cincinnati, and I think this thing could take off.
And the best thing you haven't even mentioned, Gio Bernard is gone. It is all Joe Mixon. Carries, volume. I have him ranked 9th. So I have him a little higher. I'm all about Joe Mixon. The next best guy is Samaje Perine. Come on now. 6 healthy games last year, 23 touches per game. With Burrow back, the offensive line is better. The trio of wide receivers. I'm excited about Joe Mixon, which I didn't think I was. I had him lower. I think initially I had him like 15th or 16th, and I dug into it, looked at some of the stats, and it's looking good for Joe Mixon. We're kind of close to an hour now. Is this a good stopping point? You guys want to try to talk about? So this is the next round of guys. So you guys either want to talk about this or we can hold the show. Second-year running backs. Who would you rather draft? Edwards-Helaire, Antonio Gibson, DeAndre Swift, or should we table it and start things off with there? We have about probably 5 more segments I kind of want to get into in terms of running backs.
Okay. I think we can finish off with this one.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll start you with you, Miguel. A couple of guys, second-year running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, little disappointing. That might not be his fault. That might be so-called experts who had him as a first-round draft pick, or maybe not us, but most experts really had him pretty high, late first round, early second round. Antonio Gibson with Washington kind of came out of nowhere to do what he did, and someone I was super high on, DeAndre Swift. How would you rank those three guys, Miguel? Or let me ask, who would you rather draft amongst the three?
I believe that I had Swift first, Edwards-Helaire second, and Gibson third.
Pretty close. Swift 13, Edwards-Helaire 14th, and Gibson 18th.
Yeah. With Swift, it's just the talent. I mean, you started to
So
see
good, isn't he?
you started to see at the end of the year when they actually started letting him play. I mean, after the corpse of Adrian Peterson finally got laid to rest.
Kevin Jones.
Took too long. But you started to see, I mean, Swift, he can be special. I mean, the dude is quick, shifty. He can catch some passes. I'll be honest with you when I say this. I have no idea what's going to happen with Dan Campbell in this offense. I assume they are going to be more run heavy because they do not have any sort of weapons on the outside to help Goff. So I feel like they need to be that way. They brought in Jamal Williams, but I mean, it's not like Jamal Williams was a huge factor. I figure he'll get some run, maybe as a third down here and there, but I think Swift has to be the guy, and I'm excited about that. So I ranked him first. Edwards-Helaire, he didn't do what I think everybody thought that he would, but he's still playing in a good offense. He didn't take advantage of his red zone opportunities like he probably should have. He can get better in his second year on that. The reason I ranked Gibson third was just because Washington found a role for J.D. McKissick. And I think that hurts Gibson. Now, Gibson was terrific as a runner, especially in that second half of the year, but so was McKissick, kind of being that guy out of the backfield catching passes. So I just don't think Gibson has the same type of upside as the other two do.
Gibson had 11 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That number is going to come down a little bit. I mean, he averaged 4.7 yards per carry, but 11 touchdowns is a lot. Todd, you want to talk about any of these guys? Well, yes. Yeah, let's talk about these guys, and we're going to talk about your Jamal Williams. I didn't think we were going to talk about it, but he has Jamal Williams ranked 27th. 27th. I don't know if Mike even had Jamal Williams ranked.
I do.
I have Jamal Williams ranked 47th.
44th.
So Todd loves him some Jamal Williams. Go for it.
Now here we go.
And he has Swift's ranked 16th, so a lot of running happening in Detroit, according to Todd.
Yes. I think Jamal Williams definitely will have a little bit to prove, kind of not being in the shadow, being that, now kind of he may still be that second option in Detroit, but I think the fact of the matter is that Jamal Williams can run between the tackles a little bit more. And I think too, he wants to prove a little bit that Green Bay should have, maybe kept him, but I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I think, and the fact is Jamal Williams can catch the football too, and he's a bigger back too. And I always love that factor. The fact if you're a bigger back and you can catch the football, you can knock people down a little bit more, and saying he's not DeAndre Swift quick. I'm not going that far, but I'm just saying he's a versatile back too. And I think they'll, because the fact is they're gonna want to run the ball. Because you think Jared Goff's gonna win you games? That's hilarious. Makes me so want to laugh. So I think at the end of the day they're gonna use both of those running back as their workhorse. And I think Jamal Williams might outscore DeAndre Swift just a little bit. Even though I have DeAndre Swift ranked higher, I'll say it now as a little board bet.
Oh, we're going to board bet this? We're going to board bet that Jamal Williams has more points than DeAndre Swift at the end of the season?
Let me think about that one.
Oh.
Hey, you're the one that brought it up, Todd.
But yeah, I think, but Jamal Williams, at least he showed. I mean, granted, it was a different offense and Aaron Rodgers attached to you. I get it, but I think Jamal Williams just might just have a little chip on his shoulder and prove some people wrong.
You know what's going on with Todd right now is the fact that he has Aaron Jones on his team, in that Jamal Williams every once in a while would steal a carry or a touchdown away, and it's blinded him. Like, he remembers that. I mean, Aaron Jones has been great the last 2 years, but he's so upset that Jamal Williams came in and stole carries that he has to be good in order for him to be stealing these carries away from Aaron Jones, and it's seeped into your brain, your subconscious. It's in there that you have him ranked ridiculously high. Right? Is that what's going on? I mean,
a little.
I think that is for a guy on a bad team. Jamal Williams has averaged 4.0 yards per carry in his career. He's not really good. Now, when he's spelling someone who's good, yes, he's going to get opportunities here and there to shine, to succeed. But he was on Green Bay. He was a good team. He's on a bad team now. To have him ranked 25th over guys like Chris Carson, Chase Edmonds, Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, guys you know they're going to get more carries and more opportunities for touchdowns. Let me ask you this question. Because you have him ranked so high. Let's say you end up with DeAndre Swift. And that after it's your pick again, and the next highest running back is Jamal Williams, are you going to be happy to have DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams on your team starting when week 1 hits us?
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Interesting. All right. Very interesting stuff here.
I got no comment.
He has said some interesting stuff today, both about NBA. We were watching the NBA draft. Jamal Williams. That is one, I think owners, I'm going to get text messages from other owners like, is Todd all right? I asked you that before we even started this podcast. You doing all right?
Well, I would then I would ask the other owners this question then. How many championships do they have?
Goodness gracious.
So, to use one of my quotes like I always do, all I'm saying. So that would be the question I would ask them. Some of the owners. I mean, obviously most of the owners now have championships, but I would ask those other owners that do not have championships that listen to this podcast. And yes, do I say some outrageous things? Absolutely. But I would but to my point, I would ask them, how many rings do you have?
I'll tell you what, you ain't getting one this year based on these rankings.
Oh, you don't know that.
So there you have it. I think we're going to end it there because I think we all need to take a break and just think about things and maybe reassess our thoughts on things because that is some wild stuff.
Oh, it's wild.
A lot of hate for Chris Carson and a lot of love for Jamal Williams. So next week, we'll finish up our running back talk. There's still guys we want to talk about like Mike Davis in Atlanta. That should be interesting. We talked about those running backs that can catch passes, McKissick, Chase Edmonds, Hines, James White. We'll talk about some backfield battles. So I'll ask you guys to pick a guy out of a couple of backfields that are going at it, and then we'll do a board bet as well. You sure you don't want to do that board bet?
I'm good.
Starting to backpedal.
He is.
Hasn't even ended the show. And then we'll start things up with some wide receiver talk, and it'll be more about the elite of the elite. And that'll be next week. So more running backs to come. We'll start wide receivers. We're like, 45 days until the beginning of the season? I saw a tweet that said 50 days, and I don't know if that was 5 days ago exactly, but we're coming up on it.
It goes quick. I mean, first preseason game's already going to be
Yeah,
coming up in a
top
week.
of August. Yeah, exactly. The Hall of Fame game, Pittsburgh and Dallas. So not sure if we'll see Dak or we'll see Zeke or whatever, but
Nope, you're likely to see some Mason Rudolph and Ben DiNucci.
that's just exciting. But it'll be cool to see football. Thanks, guys, for coming on, talking some RBs. Christian McCaffrey. I love DeAndre Swift. He's so good, isn't he? I'm fawning over
I
his kid.
test, Todd.
You
I
have
test.
you have him higher than I do, so maybe I won't have a chance to get him, but we'll see. So for Eric Lansing, Mikey Renault, and some sort of Todd Diamond happening over here, we'll catch you next time on the MHA podcast.